Comparison of the work of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo da Caravaggio through the lens of remake and updates. The Last Supper in the New Testament is the final meal that Jesus shared with his disciples. During the meal, Jesus states, "One of you will betray me." His disciples are in utter shock and begin to move in agitation, and that is the moment captured in Leonardo da Vinci's painting The Last Supper. The Last Supper is a remake. Leonardo da Vinci remade this historic event into an artwork of contemporary context. The Last Supper was completed in 1498 during the Renaissance period. During this time, Vinci experimented with the use of perspective and light. Leonardo da Vinci's use of perspective in The Last Supper was part of his ongoing investigation of the relationship between art and mathematics. To have Jesus be the central figure to the viewer's eyes, Vinci located the vanishing point behind the head of Jesus. Vinci further unified his composition through the use of light. With the help of the yellow guided lines above, the viewer's eyes are drawn along the downwards diagonal established light from the upper left towards the lower right and captured by the central iconic image of Jesus. The Last Supper as an update. Vinci brought the historic event into contemporary context and altered it to reflect the upper class standing of its audience. Even though the actual Last Supper occurred in the attic of an inn, Vinci situated his painting inside a palace. In addition, Vinci showed them at a table with linen cloth and expensive silverware, despite being poor. Lastly, Jesus is depicted in red and blue, in spite of red and blue dyes being expensive items. Next, we will be discussing the death of the Virgin Mary, painted by Michelangelo da Caravaggio between 1601 and 1606 during the Baroque era. This is the era that begins with the Counter-Reformation and ends with political and industrial revolutions across Europe and the Americas. During this era, Caravaggio grew passion of Counter-Reformation Catholicism and pursued his provocative agenda in a succession of altarpieces for chapels. His work was not always a liking of church authorities, hence having 3 of 5 pieces rejected, this one being one of them. Although Caravaggio remade the historic event, an event known as the Dormition of the Virgin, into contemporary context, it differs from the traditional portrayals of the Dormition. For instance, Caravaggio's painting on the left depicts a very realistic and dark scene of the Virgin's death, omitting any religious iconography like the one seen on the right side of the slide. In the artwork, Caravaggio has painted the Virgin immediately after the death. The Virgin is surrounded by 12 figures, Mary Magdalene and 11 of the disciples. All 12 figures are shown in a stationary position with distraught facial expressions. Caravaggio's use of below center vanishing point. Instead of the Virgin Mary being placed in an idealized central position, the viewer is placed below the scene and watches the awkward positioning of the Virgin's corpse. Caravaggio's use of ordinary people in ordinary dress also decreased the psychological distance between the sacred space of the painting and the private space of the individual believer, according to Brown. Caravaggio's use of light. To control light, Caravaggio arranged figures, usually models hired from the urban underclass, in his dark studio. Comparing and contrasting artworks. Similarities. 1. Familiar with Leonardo da Vinci, Caravaggio employed all of the advances of the growing science of optics in his own work. 2. Both Vinci and Caravaggio used the concept of light in their artworks. Differences. 1. Renaissance artists like Vinci used the central vanishing point to create stable images, but contrary, Caravaggio shifted the vanishing point, light source, and main characters away from the center, according to Brown. 2. Vinci eliminated his figures by an imaginary light source, while Caravaggio hired models and arranged them in his dark studio to eliminate them from a real window.